Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Howdens Joinery Digital Leap to Make-to-Order Production with SAP's Cloud MES. I'm Mona Fieser, Associate Marketing Director and your moderator. A few housekeeping notes before we start the session. So if you have any questions during the presentation today, please type in them into the chat or the question boxes, and then we will address them at the end of this discussion as time allows. Please also have a look at the handout section of the panel. There you can find two very nice case studies of Howdens Joinery that you can download. And lastly, the webinar recording will be sent to you. Now I want to introduce you to our speakers today. We have David Peacock. He's the IS Manufacturing System Technical Lead for Howdens Joinery. He's a motivated and energetic IT professional with over 20 years experience within the manufacturing supply chain, from developing CAD and CAM post-processes to designing and building manufacturing execution systems. David is excited to be learning, developing, and inspiring while building and implementing manufacturing solutions for the future with the latest technologies and based on Industry 4.0 practices. Thank you very much for joining us today. And the second speaker on the round is Martin. Martin Gore is a multifaceted alliance manager, business development and sales professional with a strong pre-sales background. His business solution experience ranges from e-commerce to customer relationship management and enterprise resource planning applications, both for on-premise and demand deployments. Martin has worked on several Industry 4.0 manufacturing projects, including Aramet, Eurofit Group, Federal Mogul, Powertrain Automotive, and many more. Thank you very much for the speakers today, and David, especially a warm welcome to you to join us. Now let's jump in, and I will turn over the presentation to Martin.
Hi, Ramona. Thank you very much for the introduction, and welcome everybody for joining this webinar today with myself and Dave. In terms of the agenda, we have a very simple agenda we'd like to cover, and the real objective really is to we will effectively allow Dave to kind of tell us his story of their MES journey, where they started and where they're going to, and in that journey we'll kind of flesh out a couple of projects that they've been doing in terms of implementing implementing SAP DM and so on. But before we start off with, I think the first question we'd like to cover, Dave, is just give us some context and some background in terms of, who is Howden as an organisation.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Martin. Thanks for inviting us to do this. So Howdens is UK's leading kitchen manufacturer. We sell kitchens to trade customers only. So we started in 1995, and we've grown to a depot network of just over 900 depots across UK and Europe. So we service those depots out of our 3 UK PDCs, and we also have an XDC network. And we support the manufacture of that product in across 5 manufacturing sites that we've got that house sort of about 170 work centres over 8 SAP plants. So we design and manufacture most of our own cabinets. We produce about 4.5 million cabinets a year, and we also make worktops, skirting, and other fixtures and fittings for kitchen. And at the moment, 1 in 4 of our products is manufactured in the UK. Last year, we delivered 44 million pieces of kitchen cabinets and furniture out of our Raunds distribution centre out to our depot network.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave. So just from one side alone, we can see that just the scale of your organisation, right, and the number of kitchens which are being installed primarily in the UK market. So yeah,
quite amazing that there are so many people want to replace the kitchens and purchase kitchens every year.
Yeah, and I think maybe to add on top of the topic, I remember when we first met each other a couple of years ago, right? I understood also that you just don't provide kitchen cabinets, but I think you the UK's largest white goods manufacturer, white goods supplier. Is that right?
Yeah, so we provide more white goods in the UK than anybody else really through our depot network. Yeah, I couldn't tell off the top of my head what the stats are, but we used to sell 4 times the amount of curries as an example.
Right. So those who are in the UK, right, or from the UK, recognise Currys and other white goods manufacturers, white goods producers, right? So
yeah.
There's a Currys in every town. So what Dave, you can put it at the context, the quantity that Dave's organisation is providing, that's quite an amazing quantity as well. So, okay, that's good. So I think let's kind of, thanks for the quick overview there. So let's get into your digital manufacturing story. And I think a good way to start off with is really, where did you start, where you currently are now, and then where you're going to, right? So I think it's really good to share with the audience in terms of your experience really within MES.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess really this journey started in around about 2000 when we were a small point solution manufacturing development team, really. So we used to build small applications for our factories and within our supply chain to just basically either automate or collect data from different points. We really had no SAP experience, no MES experience or anything, but that sort of changed in 2005 when we did a proof of concept with SAP to put SAP ERP into our business, into one of the factories. And while we're doing that, we were assessing SAP's MES system at the time. And as part of that proof of concept, we realized that the SAP offering at the time wasn't going to give us what we actually wanted. It was too clunky and it was very menu driven for our shop floor operators. So as we took the decision to start rolling out and developing SAP across our production sites, we actually developed or decided to take the decision to develop our own manufacturing execution system. So we built from the ground up an MES solution, which we implemented into our first site in Runcorn in 2007. And then from that point, we started enhancing that system. So it's a system that's directly connected to SAP using remote function calls and APIs. And it gives our operators the ability to see what needs to be produced on each of our production lines, and then real time allows them to show that they've started an order, stopped an order, and done confirmations. Once we'd done one site, we then started rolling out across our other site in Howden, and we started then adding more features and functionality into our own homegrown MES, so that we could do label printing. We could actually do some management of our rigid lines, so that rather than having a control system on our rigid lines, our MES system does all the line control, sending data to PLCs, collecting data from PLCs, integrating with new equipment that we bought in terms of assets, new production lines, and creating automated services so that operators didn't have to interact with the system. They just interacted with their line control software, and our MES systems detected that and then brought all the data back into ERP. And that we did that over a number of years through 2009 and to 2015. And we then did some more automation of services in 2017. And this then sort of brought us up into 2020, when we I guess hit the realization that the MES system that we currently got wasn't going to live into the future. Things were changing. We got the advent of Industry 4 was getting talked more and more about. We were getting to a point where we were really struggling to constantly develop that technology that we'd originally set off with in sort of 2007. And we knew we needed to change. So in 2021, we took a step change, and we actually implemented SAP MES on one of our new production lines that was being brought in, and that went really, really well. And just as we were coming out of implementing that, there was a lot of noise from SAP about digital manufacturing and how that was going to be the future, and they were going to start looking at replacing MES with digital manufacturing. So in 2023, we then went on the journey that we'll go into more detail in the session for paint to order. We've then since started rolling digital manufacturing out to our other factories. And we've obviously got future plans going forward that I think digital manufacturing, or SAP digital manufacturing, is going to be at the heart of our manufacturing processes going forward. So ultimately, we're going to replace all our legacy MES systems with digital manufacturing, and that's going to become the foundation for what we do within our manufacturing landscape.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So for the people in the audience, I asked Dave to actually to put this slide together to kind of show their experience in MES systems, right? Because even though they had a legacy application, when building out a legacy application and understanding the needs of the business, right, they had a good level of requirements which helped to evaluate SAP, didn't it, right? So you knew when you went into SAP MES, you knew what you required, and then going to PM, it was the same thing, wasn't it? In terms of based on your experience and the business, you knew what you needed, right? So
if I look back to 2005, yeah, we were in a totally different place to where we are now. You know, didn't even know what a production order or a work center was. You know, we've learned all that over the years, so that we could make that assessment.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that assessment's easy to do, but we've got a lot of experience now in MES.
Yeah, I said it. Yeah, exactly. And then to kind of move on from there to give maybe a bigger picture. You know, we have this slide here. So Dave, maybe explain this in terms from an architectural perspective. And then once you've done that, I'd like to kind of ask you a couple of questions around the bottom part of this pyramid, right? In terms of, you know, why you have a hybrid landscape, what is your plans to, let's say, harmonize your environment and so on, right?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as you can see, we have quite a complex landscape, and predominantly SAP dominates that landscape. And I think that's a conscious decision as a business that we've made. So we essentially have two main SAP systems. We have a SAP Central system, which looks after all our master data, our finance, all our depot network. But our depots also use a system called K8 to take orders from customers. Sat alongside our SAP Central system, we then have a manufacturing system which is dedicated to all the master data of manufacturing, which is slightly different from our central system. So our central system looks at sales codes, finished goods that consumer can purchase, whereas our manufacturing is all about the semi-finished, the raw materials that we use to manufacture those goods here in the UK. Sat above both of those, then we have APO, so that's looking at the demand and feeding demand into the various systems, and that's what we use overarching across the two systems to make sure they're both aligned in terms of what demand we've got coming in, what we need to manufacture, and where all the stocks sit. And then we have a lot of other systems sat around. So a couple of years ago, we implemented FSM. We've got C4C working as well in line with our SAP Central systems. We've implemented SAP Transport Management, and we have I think it's called Kerridge, JDA. That is our main warehousing system that looks after all our PDCs. and our warehouse network. And we're looking at slowly replacing that. So we've implemented our first warehouse in SAP EWM, and we'll be phasing JDA out, and EWM will be coming to the forefront of that, which will give us better ties into manufacturing. And then across the bottom, we've got sort of the internal MES that we developed. We've got ME, MII running on a single process in one of our factories. And then we've got 3 sites, 1 which is live, 2 which are about to go live, that we're going to run DM on. And then we've got a plethora of custom solutions that are point solutions to do various activities that we develop internally and maintain internally to sort of fill the gaps where we don't think SAP quite fits the need or meets our requirements. So like our inbound delivery and scheduling, we have a small C# application that manages everything that's coming inbound to one of our manufacturing sites, and it's then synchronized with our SAP systems. So yeah.
Okay, that's quite good, actually putting your landscape into perspective, right? And I think the big question we want to ask is, at the moment you have a hybrid landscape of both on-prem and cloud-based MES systems, 3 different applications, right? So what were I suppose what the question is really, what were your business drivers to move from your internal MES solution to an SAP-centric solution? Right, maybe we start off with that question.
Okay, so it's quite an interesting one, because yeah, well, it wasn't just about cost reduction and becoming more efficient. Like you said, we'd already got an MES system, and we'd already got advantage from that over the last 20 years. It basically being able to track and optimize and improve our internal production system. However, over the last sort of 5 years, it's become very stagnant. It's incredibly difficult for us to now modify and change, just because of the underlying technology stack that it uses. That technology stack is probably going to be obsolete by 2030. So we've got, we've got to start thinking about change. We've got to remove some of that legacy. But I think there's a bigger piece as well, that we realised that we were missing out on a lot of things. So yes, our MES system is very good at controlling our production orders through the process, but there's lots of other silo bits of data that we couldn't get at, and it probably take us years to develop that. So what we actually wanted to do was give our internal teams more of a toolkit that they could then use to configure and also build around, to replace what we've got, but also live into some of those opportunities for the future. So we did assess several applications, MES systems, but we just felt that when we looked at MEMII initially, it gave us that toolkit. It gave us that flexibility that I suppose we were looking for, where we didn't want to just take something off the shelf and be constrained by what we were getting. We wanted to be able to customize it so that it met our needs and our requirements. And I guess I think the other reason that we went down the route that we did, we've obviously, as you can see from the landscape, we've got a lot of other SAP products. We've built quite a lot of good relationships with either SAP themselves in certain areas, or with burst partners in industrial experts like yourselves. We wanted to make sure that we had a partner that worked how we like to work and could give us what we wanted. As an organization, we like to have functional owners for all of our applications, and we like to have the expertise internally. And that's no different with our MES and our sort of production execution systems. And that's a really good thing from our side that Industrial Excellence offered, is you guys didn't want to just come in, although you would have done, and just implement it. Actually, we went on a journey.
Yes.
And you've allowed us to learn and brought us up to speed, and we've been able to share knowledge and share experiences. And I think we're getting now into a position where we've got that relationship, so that when we're looking at implementing in different areas that we've not necessarily done, we can pull on your experience, or if we are doing something that's like a repeat, and we can use internal, or we can blend and mix both, which really works for us.
Yeah, that was quite important, wasn't it, in terms of the engagement model? And that's probably a good segue into the next topic on this, which is how did you evaluate DM, right? Because you had ME, and you kind of said, well, you can still run ME and MII, but obviously we know there is an end of life on that solution, isn't there, right, in 2027 and so on.
Yeah,
but you had to do an exercise to compare. So maybe you want to say, well, how did you evaluate ME versus DM? Right, because you could have gone somewhere else. You could have gone non-SAP centric, couldn't you?
Yeah, well, absolutely. But I think it was quite frustrating that just as we were implementing and finishing the implementation of ME, MII, SAP then told us about DM, and probably if we'd have been 12 months later on, we'd have maybe assessed DM straight away. But I think we had to make quite a quick decision on where we went. We ultimately we've got to try and replace our legacy MES system, which is running on 170 assets. And what we were very conscious of not doing was going down a journey with ME, MII, and then having to basically tear it all out and start again. So I think the first thing that we did when we set off with ME, MII, we actually had a direct connection within SAP, and they were giving us some help and some advice, but we realized, like I said, that we didn't get everything that we wanted from that relationship, and that's why we found yourselves, and we started working with yourselves, and we actually ran that first line as a bit of a proof of concept.
Yeah,
and really helped us with the DM assessment, because what we then essentially did was ask you guys to say, right, replicate what we've got it from MEMII in DM, so that we got almost a direct comparison, and we could prove that as a starting block, did DM meet all the requirements that MII could meet for us? And there were some areas where we weren't 100% sure, but I think we'd seen enough from the proof of concept that we were confident we could get DM working to the level that we needed it to then push forward with it, and that become the MES of choice, really.
Yeah, because effectively what we did, wasn't it, like you said, we did a compare and contrast. Yep. Show me what we configured in ME. Can we do it in DM? Mm-hmm. And then which we did, and then in DM it's like, okay, what if I wanted to extend it? How could we extend? And that kind of leads us nicely then into our first case study, which is PTO or paint to order.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's chat about paint to order, right? So before Dave goes through it, so many of us have, obviously, we all have kitchens in our homes. Many of us may not have the choice of deciding which color, really down to our partners, to our wives, our partners, etc. Right? But I found this quite interesting, because I just recently renovated up my house, and we were looking at kitchens, and the one thing my wife said to me, I don't like that color. Right? And it's like, well, this is the only colors that you have. Right? But then this is very, very interesting now that you have Howdens, an organization, had realized from getting feedback from the marketplace that people don't want to have the standard color set, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember Dave saying at one time, maybe sometime in the future, you might offer kitchens in multiple colors, right? And so, yeah. So maybe just take us down through that paint to order journey, with the drivers around that, and then we'll talk about the project itself. Right?
I think there's, within the kitchen marketplace, there's been quite a shift. For years we've talked about the kitchen being the heart of the home, and I think it's no more so relevant today than ever. You know, people certainly in the UK tend to want to have a big kitchen diner. It's not a kitchen anymore; it's a living space, and they want the kitchen to reflect that. It's not another room; it's part of the main living space. And I think we went down this road that we were obviously conscious that we offer a massive range of colours and styles, but it's never enough. So we want a little bit more or something different. So we went down this original approach of having 20 or so different colours that were slightly away from our standard colours that customers could pick. I think as well as that, it gave us a new opportunity within the marketplace that we could trial some different colours and see if the customer consumer enjoyed them and took them up, then it was worth pursuing and maybe rolling those out on a larger scale. But it also gave some customers the ability to choose all sorts of different colours. You know, if you look at the palette that you've got on screen, there's some really good colours, and I would say there's some very interesting colours among there. But obviously, you've got to try somehow in the marketplace, and this idea of being able to pick a couple of ranges that we do, so the different styles of kitchens, and have them available in different colours for end consumer, gave us a sort of a different edge within the kitchen marketplace. And so we decided that we'd buy a new factory, and we kit that new factory out with new paint lines. So painted products, not something that Howdens have done from a manufacturing perspective. So it gave us another skill, and it allowed us an opportunity to bring in experts and learn a new process. And through that journey, we decided that, you know what, we'll implement a new MES system as well at the same time, give them something totally new, so it's ready for the future. So that's where, I guess, Paint to Order was born, and because we were getting new process, new factory, new MES, it was all going to be as new as possible. So,
and new, yeah, and sorry to interrupt. So a new not just went from product, Dave, it went from having a new order entry mechanism in the depots flowing through to SAP Central into their manufacturing and so on.
Absolutely, we had so typically as an organisation we have sort of a make to stock model. This was a whole new offering of what customer's going to come into a depot, and they're going to order the colours, and we're then going to manufacture to that order. And we want to do it as soon as possible. So I think it works. You know, like we have like a 5-day manufacture and ship lead time, so it's quite a quick turnaround. So that we're not, you know, the whole ethos of Howdens is that you can walk into one of our depots and walk away with your kitchen. And this needed to be very close to that as well. So part of the process was then implementing a whole new make to order strategy based on the current systems. And I think that was really interesting, because if you look at the timescales of this, you know, we started this project in December 2022, and we actually implemented in June 23. And when you look at the wider project timescale of actually setting up the factory, it was less than 12 months. So we actually got the keys. I think it was in July 2022, the new building, and by June 2023, we'd made the first customer orders.
That's quite significant, right? Greenfield factory, new processes, new systems, new MES system.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you know, that's quite a lot to take on, especially in that time scale, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, we we made some compromises. So, you know, we didn't build a brand new bespoke make to order solution in SAP. We customized our make to stock process, which was a real challenge, but it saved us quite a bit of time. We didn't do any machine integration with this first round. You know, we kept it all separate, but that was all really down to the timescales. And at some point, we will go back and we will improve, as we have already done in some.
I think you have done some improvements, haven't you? Some requests have come through, and then they've been implemented. So maybe we'll just kind of jump in now in terms of the project, right? So, you know, we got a timeline, so that's, you know, very interesting to understand. Greenfield factory, new processes, new config, plus MES, right? So that kind of shows you that you can get something running pretty quickly. But I think I remember in our conversation, right? So this is really for the audience. So when you look at the kitchen, right? The kitchen is just, sorry, Dave, if I simplify it, but it's got, you know, it's 4 panels, right? But then one of these panels is painted, and I think when we were chatting about the features and functions in DM at the time, one of your challenges was, let's say the average kitchen has 40 panels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And all the same color, right? Yeah. But somehow they've got to follow the same path or different paths through the factory, right? And then end up at the very end on the pallet when you ship out the door. So your MES challenges were just the usual start, stop, but it was how do you manage the concept of making all those doors in the same color, but also you might have other customer orders of the same color, which then goes into the paint shop at the same time. So you had some quite interesting use cases, didn't you? Which created some challenges for you, but let's maybe talk about those quickly. Yeah.
Okay, so we had really two main challenges. One was the way in which we sell kitchens. We don't sell a kitchen to a customer. We sell all the components of a kitchen. So we on the sales order, you would have all the different panels, products that you need to supply to the depot. So we were sales order driven, but when you then convert sales orders into production orders, you get sort of a production order per piece. And like you then said, Martin, is that some of these pieces you either describe them as a flat piece, so the actual door itself, or it can be a curved or shaped piece, like a piece of cornice or a rounded door. And then they have 2 specific routes through the factory, based on the sanding and the paint machines that they have to go into. So trying to track those through the factory and keep everything together, because this is now a customer order. We're not just making panels that are going to go into stock and go onto a shelf. We have to actually keep everything together. It was a massive challenge for us. And I think one of the things that we initially looked at was the concept of process lots. But because of the specific routings that we wanted to send the process lots on, i.e. they needed to split out and go down 2 different routes, we found that functionality just wasn't available as we were trying to implement. They've made some improvements, and it's something that we're constantly assessing, because if we can get back to that concept, it'll really simplify things. And then the other concept that we have is that those production orders then go into the system, into DM, and get converted into SFCs. But we're only potentially a 1-for-1 relationship with the production order, so the SFC number becomes a bit redundant. And when we load an order, we're actually loading all the sales order pieces. So that, like you said, we might be launching 40 different production orders at a time, but we don't want in DM the guys on the shop floor to have to press start 40 times. They'd hate us for it. So we had to come up with a mechanism so that whenever they selected one of the production orders in the pod, it found all the production orders related to that sales order in that color, and then started those on the right. Well, it gets more complicated because it was also about the routing that they were on as well. So it's all those products that have got the same sales order that are on the same routing, it can then launch. And like we said, it was a massive problem to start with. We've since made some enhancements where you can now search the pods for sales order number, which out of the box you can't do, because sales order is a custom piece of text, and for some reason within DM they decided not to let you search on custom fields. And then the second thing that we did to get around that as well then is we looked at creating our own application, because when you buy or when you invest in DM, you're not just buying digital manufacturing, you're buying into all the sort of landscape that SAP offers. So you get BTP, CPI, so you can do your own custom developments. Now with this proof of concept, we didn't go down that route. What we did was we developed our own web page and scanner app, so that as the orders get launched into our factory, we actually print a passport out with a barcode with the production order number in. So to speed up the operators starting and stopping orders, we moved away from the pod and put hand scanners in, so that they could then just select and scan the production order at the operation or the resource that they were at, and it would then start all the associated production orders, SFCs at that point, and they then could work through the factory on a hand scanner rather than on a pod, which again is an improvement that we made, and an improvement that we could make because of the DM technology.
Yeah, and I think that's quite an interesting point, right? Because when you started your implementation, you know, we know SAP DM goes through quarterly releases, so you were implementing at a point in time where it was like, you know, let's say at minimum 4 to 5 releases prior. And so it was a case of how flexible, what kind of tools are available for us to make these modifications.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think with cloud, you can't modify within cloud applications because it's fixed for everybody. But, you know, we found the right extensibility method to be able to create applications for you. And this was really, really key for you, wasn't it, right? To use DM as the base,
Yep.
use extensibility mechanisms which are available to allow your team, so like Ben and the guys in the team, to actually then create their own apps and integrate via public APIs to enhance and improve features and functions. And I think many customers want to be able to do that during their MES system.
Absolutely, it's a massive part for us, definitely.
Yeah, and I think those of you in the audience are thinking, why is MII in here, right? So why are we using MII? Well, that's an interesting topic, because remember at the beginning, Dave was saying that they only had a very, very short time window to implement. So during this project, we had to find ways of, for example, printing. And at this point in time, SAP DM didn't quite have the right level of, let's say, printing capability. So we went, and I remember having a discussion with you. So Dave, how do you feel about, DM doesn't do this, but how do you feel about having a short-term solution which we can throw away maybe a year later by using MII? You already have MII, let's use it, right, to get the project up and going, and then afterwards, then we'll come back to it and replace it with DM functionality. And that's kind of like the approach that we took, because you were very much an early adopter, really, in implementing DM.
Yeah, absolutely. We knew there were going to be challenges. We knew we had really tight timescales, and sometimes you have to incur that technical debt. But it was at the time the right thing to do. We are now working through putting all that printing back into DM. But I think, as we've got on the slide, the big challenge for us was not having that sort of life cycle designer available to us in DM. Initially, DM was all XY coordinates, ZPL code. The designer you could just drag and drop things on So yeah, we took that decision to use the technology that we knew from MII and get that piece working so we could get the project away.
Yes, yeah. And having this hybrid landscape has allowed you to get these projects up and running, but the goal is to then rip that out and replace it with more DM-centric technology, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it is definitely a tactical decision to get in the timescales.
Exactly. And I think for the audience, what's also quite interesting, you see these black boxes on the right-hand side, is just the sheer scale of transactions. Remember, this is a greenfield factory trialing a number of colors, right? And you can see that the volume went from a very, very small number to what it is today.
And it was a really almost jump into the unknown for us. We had no idea how it was going to take off or whether it would take off. And like I said, the figures just spoke for themselves. The fact that in the month we'd done 3,000 pieces, you know, we'd sold to 100 unique customers, and now we're doing 5,000 plus unique customers. You know, and I'm sure that number will go up because we're just coming through our peak period. So it is, you know, 200,000 plus easy, I think, this year for 2024.
Yeah. And that's a great testament in terms of, you know, changing go-to-market strategy from make to order, make to stock, so going from make to stock, make to order, but also from a DM perspective in terms of the massive increase in transaction volume, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
From a technical perspective, it speaks 1,000 words, isn't it?
It is, and it's one of the things that we haven't really worried about too much. You know, the DM just managed to handle the transactional volumes. I can remember in the early days of our legacy MES, actually getting volumes through the data and having to optimize data tables and, you know, just to process things was a massive challenge. We just haven't really seen much of that within DM.
Yeah. So those of you in the audience, right, which are thinking about maybe you're evaluating DM and when you have questions around transactional volume, I think this is a really good example of transactional volume growth and so on. So we are kind of going through time quite quickly. We only have a couple of slides left. So let's maybe move forward with about lessons learned. I think this is very important, right? Because we're talking about new technology, going from on-prem to cloud, becoming a cloud-first organization, right? But then from a project perspective, what did you learn?
Yeah, I think so. It's been really interesting doing this because I think it's not until you look back that you understand what you've learned. And I think one of the biggest learnings for us was understanding the requirements. DM's such a massive product, and it gives you thousands and thousands of different options. So if you've really got to know which parts of it you want to use. So you really need to understand what you actually want out of the solution, how you're going to use that solution, so that you can target those areas. You know, I've watched lots of SAP information about DM. The product's just so vast. So actually focusing in on what is important to you and your organisation. There is no one size fits all. So I think that's really the start point, because then you can go and ask SAP the right questions, or you can ask your partners the right questions to show you those bits of the system working. I think then when you understand that, the next thing to know is the landscape that you're going to get. So like I said earlier, it's not just about DM, it's about the wider landscape that you sort of investing in with SAP. So BTP and CPI, they give us a massive advantage because we can customize and we can create lots of different things. For the work surface project that we're going through at the moment, you know, we've built a whole set of transactions with Fury Fury front ends to simplify the process so that we don't have to go back to the pods all the time. And that will then help you again into the next topic of, because you've got lots of different technologies, you need to understand what disciplines you need, and so that you can create and build your project teams in the right way. You know, I'm certainly finding it really difficult at the moment that we start these projects and it's like, I just need some development, and we go and get an ABAPer and it's like, oh no, you need somebody that understands CPI, or somebody who understands BTP, or Fury developer. Like, your teams doubled or tripled in size with different skills. So I think that's a really key thing to understand. Then again, I think security and networks. So the whole goal of DM is connecting things, you know, picking up all these silos of data, but it's also connecting IO systems on-prem. Are they in cloud? Are they hybrid like we are at the moment? You're going to have to be able to route all that and configure all your systems to get through that in a secure way. So really understanding how your network's laid out and how you're going to deploy the solution is quite key. We've certainly hit some stumbling blocks where getting things connected have been our biggest challenge. Actually delivering the solution once you're connected has been quite straightforward, but getting that connection in a safe and secure way has been quite challenging for us.
And I think that's the challenge, isn't it, really, of connecting your physical world to your cloud world, right? You need so much additional security in place.
Yeah, and well, I don't think it's. I think it's both ends. It's the cloud end coming back in, but then it's actually a shop floor. You're potentially exposing now more things from a factory floor out. If you want the data and you want to connect systems, you've really got to think about that as well.
Yeah.
And then I think the next couple are still work in progress for us, because within DM you've got the ability of pods, and you can just, you know, you can throw something out and you can see how it works. How do you go about the design? How much do you need to document, and how much can you just get on with and build as you go? And I think we're finding that really challenging at the moment, along with the change management that, you know, we have a 4-tier landscape. So we have a dev, a QA, pre-production, and a production environment. But how do you manage the change through there when you've only got 2 tenants, and you've got your dev, your QA, and pre-prod in one tenant and your production in the other? And essentially, once you've built something in your dev tenant, it's available really across all 3 landscapes, because of the way that you set up, it's just a different plant. So, you know, I think SAP are still working on a lot of that in terms of putting proper change management and control in place. But it's something that we're certainly mindful of, trying to get a handle of, and making sure that we understand what have we promoted into our production landscape, what's still in our development, and, you know, where everything sits. I wouldn't say we're brilliant at it yet. We're still learning, but we are trying to get a good handle on it. And I think it's important as well to understand, certainly when you're going to get your quarterly or your updates from SAP, you need to know where you've got all your developments and which stages they're all in. And then coming up again is I guess the extensibility is the whole technology stack that you're getting with the product, and you know, it allows you to think in a different way. So it really ties into the bottom one. Don't just approach this as, I just want to replace what I've got. You know, it offers up a massive advantage when you start thinking about the extensibility of the product and being able to develop more solutions in a different way. We certainly want to strive to have an operator have a more sort of natural operation style, so they don't have to interact with lots of systems. They're not going in and pressing buttons and confirming things. They can just do what they do on their machine, and the system can then detect that and update and process. So it's thinking about how you want that to work and what bits of either extensibility in terms of creating custom things to interact with your shop floor, or how can you use what's in DM to connect things up through production connector, through OPC layers. There's massive amounts to think about.
Yeah, there is, and I think just think about extensibility, right? I think some of your use cases are pretty interesting, where effectively, DM is still there, right? DM is still there, but you're just using a front end and public APIs to connect and pull and push data into the application, right? And building it externally, you're not disrupting the core, right? Which is really important. That you're not
exactly. And I think we're certainly finding that we're getting to a place where DM is becoming that bit of orchestration and making sure we're going through the right process and we've got the right checks and balances in place. But it's not necessarily the thing that the end user is interacting with.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Let's maybe just quickly go through HWS or the Solid Services project. Let's go through this quite quickly. So I really want to then sort of go through the last slide and hope you have a few minutes for questions at the end. So.
Yep. So in 2021, we acquired 2 solid work surface sites, so making quartz worktops. So we became overnight the largest quartz manufacturer in the UK. It's a massive opportunity for us. It came with its own legacy in-house built solutions, and we've spent most of this year building a full new end-to-end supply chain, make to order, with variant config in SAP ERP and DM across both sites. We've also done some front end for the way that the depots order and the orders come into us, but we've basically implemented a full manufacturing suite with custom hand scanning applications, standard DM, non-standard DM, to make sure that we can track raw materials going through the factory, production orders, the customer order itself going through the factory. So in some cases, we've got a legacy SCADA solution for one of the production lines. We've actually implemented or integrated into that as well, so picking up all the signals that the existing system was getting and processing all those, so that we can send the requirements of what we need to manufacture, and the line can then tell us when it's made something, at which stage through the process it is, and when it's finished, and then move it on to the next process. So again, that's currently going through UAT and training, and we will push that out into our production landscape early next year.
Yeah, and I think what's really quite critical is the understanding where a product is in manufacturing, because you're dealing with a very high value product, aren't you, into the raw material of a slab.
Yeah.
Right. For those of you who have bought, granite worktops, the price range is enormous per square meter, right? So when you're dealing with something really high value, by not following the process, and you scrap a product, that's thousands of pounds that you're having to throw away, right? So so managing the process and the quality and having accurate costing is quite important for you, isn't it?
That was the massive, I suppose, business requirement for implementing this, was to grab hold of those costs from a manufacturing perspective.
Yeah.
So we've got a really good detailed view of what they look like.
Yeah, that's right. Very, very critical with high value products. Okay, our last slide really is, we've kind of talked about historically where you were, right? We have paint to order live successfully for over a year.
Yep.
We just about to go live shortly with just in the new year with HWS, the 2 plants we were talking out. So quickly then, Dave. So where are we going? So where are you going really in terms of, you know, next year, which is just around the corner, right, and then beyond?
Yeah, so ultimately we need to replace all the legacy MES systems we've got. We're going to replace that with DM. So I think our first challenge back into this year and into 25 is planning that out of how we're going to, because there's some potential pitfalls along the way. And we'll probably start by taking out MEMII. That will be the first thing so that we're back down to 2 systems rather than 3. And then when we've done that, we'll look at potentially replacing our legacy system in one of the plants. So we've got some small factories that we treat as a single plant. So we'll probably do one of those first. So we've got a full end-to-end working. And then when we've done that, we'll then roll that out to a site probably, and then out to the rest of the sites. That'll be the start point. And hopefully as we're doing that, we'll get some better analytics and insights, because we'll have a much richer data set being collected by the systems. You know, we plan on looking at automatic stoppages, automatic downtime, so we can capture that for the machines. And then going forward, we have an old ECC6 on-prem site system at the moment from SAP. It's running on HANA, but we're going to basically move all that into the cloud and then upgrade it to S4. So there may be then, when we, as part of doing that, that will allow us to change or to look at changing core process, which then will probably mean us going back and re-implementing or changing some of the DM on the shop floor to reflect that. So some of the key things are, we've got like WM areas at the moment in ECC6. Does that become EWM? And does DM then connect to EWM and utilize that technology? Right. So there's quite a lot of exciting challenges, I think, along the way.
Well, there's lots of opportunity, isn't it, to get some of your processes, which are reasonably integrated now, to be really connected. Right?
Yeah.
That's one thing.
And I think that's the whole end game, is to have a really well connected landscape and environment, so we can see exactly what's going on within manufacturing across the piece.
Yeah, and I know that from a rollout perspective, we've been talking about how do we do the rollout and what do you roll out, because you've internally, your team is being able to, actually yourself, you're telling me about yourself, you've been playing with one of the plugins within the pod, which was downtime, and how potentially you could get a downtime application up and running quite quickly and then rolled out again. I say quite quickly, but obviously over a couple of months across all of their assets.
Yeah.
Right. Build once to build multiple times without really that much effort, obviously apart from training and change management, of course. But I think this is what you find quite interesting and exciting about DM, isn't it?
Yeah, I think when you start looking at your use cases, there are certain ones that you can take in isolation, and you could then just get DM out there and get people becoming familiar with it. So that's definitely an opportunity we are exploring, so that we're almost hooking people into it, because what's really good is if we can get that one that you described away with the downtime, actually the analytics that we get out of that's really favourable, and our end users that are looking at that downtime from machines, they're really interested in that at the moment. So it's almost it'll fund itself, because you'll get the buy-in from the users. Yeah. They'll see the benefits of it, and it's almost like a no-brainer.
Exactly. So there's lots of more questions I could ask you, Dave, but we kind of coming to top of the hour, right?
Yeah.
So I think just to finalize, I don't really want to talk about industry excellence, because we will send those of you on the webinar, we'll send out the slide deck. I would encourage you to download the 2 case studies that we have. But I think if those of you still on the line, if you don't mind hanging around for couple more minutes. Ramona, do we have any questions that have come from our audience?
Yeah, we have one question here. So the question is, why did you move from SAP MII to DM?
Real simple answer was that DM's obviously SAP's future, and we wanted to make sure that we got in there as early as possible to leverage as much of an advantage as we can from DM rather than implementing a technology that's going to go end of life.
Okay, that's clear. That's quite clear. Do you have anything else, Ramona?
Yeah, there's one more I can see here. Did you consider using SAP DM for edge computing?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting one. So when we set off on the DM journey, we were part of the edge computing customer forum, and we attended that. It was really useful, actually invaluable to us, and it's something that we are still looking at. It needed to mature a little bit for what we want. So we certainly found that when they initially proposed it, you were limited to the hardware that you could use on site, and it couldn't display pods. It was all about back-end processing. But I believe that they're changing that rapidly, so we are going to get re-engaged with that customer event because it's something that we want to make sure that we've got as much availability of our manufacturing facilities as possible, and that gives us that.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. I see here one more, and then I think.
Okay. Yeah.
What challenges you faced having DM being cloud-based? Were there any impacts for production, for example?
Touch wood, we've not seen any. I think we've had one outage that lasted half an hour so far, and then that's why one of the reasons that we want to have a look at the edge computing again. I think the biggest challenge we faced was getting all the systems hooked up. So because we have an on-prem ECC and we have on-prem machines and things that we want to talk to, actually getting the cloud connector established, getting all the configuration between the systems working was quite a big challenge, making sure we got the right firewall rules and ports opened. I think once you have established it, it's quite straightforward then to build. So yeah.
Yeah, it takes a bit of configuration, but once you've built it, it's there. You don't have to change it ever again, which is pretty good. And I think in terms of your half an hour downtime, you compare that to on-prem systems, that's still pretty good, right?
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. I think because we are on-prem though at the moment, it's always a worry. And I think any organization that is moving from on-prem to a cloud product is going to worry about that. Yeah.
And I think in an on-prem world, you think about having to do Windows upgrades, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. You probably have quite a lot of high downtime on an on-prem environment as well, potentially. So
I guess it's trying to find maintenance windows. That's the big thing. Like one of the things we struggle with, because some of our factories work 24/7, is finding those weekend slots that tend to be 4 or 5 hours. It gets tighter and tighter. Whereas when you move to cloud, there's obviously the resilience in there, provided you've got the internet connection out to the cloud.
Yes, that's right. So that's one of the benefits that you're receiving in terms of new updates, new functionality, and also then the window of the upgrade actually it's just kind of there, isn't it? It just kind of happens. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we come to the end of our webinar. I'd like to thank those of you who are still with us. I trust that you found this session of interest and you should gain some insights. We wanted to provide you the total big picture of where Dave and his team and the organization have come from, their challenges and where their challenges, both good and bad, right? And also where they're going strategically. And I think it's from our perspective, it's a really good use case, and their journey is really exciting for us to follow. And I think, David, thank you very much for your input. I know you're really passionate. You could talk for hours on this topic,
Yep,
which is
absolutely.
great. I really appreciate for your time out of your busy day in helping us to share your story to the people who attended. So thanks again. Okay.
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you very much. Thank you very much, David and Martin, for the lively discussion. So for all the questions we were not able to answer, we will reach out to you by email because I saw a couple more questions coming in. Also, as Martin said, please make sure to download the case study where you can see the QR code on the screen right here, or also find it on our website on index.com. And we hope, we know your time is valuable, and on behalf of the team, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Have a great day and goodbye.
Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. Cheers,
Cheers, guys.
goodbye.
Bye.